From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO, a daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Wednesday, November 22nd. I'm Erin O'Toole. For many of us, Thanksgiving is all about family traditions, which usually involve eating way too much food or watching football or the Macy's parade. But there's another tradition that's become part of the Thanksgiving holiday, although how that happened might seem like a bit of a mystery. For more, we're going to listen back to a conversation that explains it all.
You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant.
On Thanksgiving, radio stations around the country will play Arlo Guthrie's 1967 song, Alice's Restaurant. But why is this 18-minute song, which is ostensibly about littering in Vietnam, considered a Thanksgiving song? Here to explain is Margot from KUNC's sister station, the Colorado Sound, and host of the weekly music history show, Music 101. Hi, Margot.
Hi, Erin. Thanks for having me.
So for listeners who aren't familiar with the song, I mean, it is very unique. Can you start by describing it for us?
Alice's Restaurant is a song that is based on a true story of something that happened to Arlo Guthrie and his friend Rick Robbins, who's also a musician. They were home for Thanksgiving, and they were hanging out with their friend Alice. Alice is a true person.
Okay.
And they had a big Thanksgiving dinner at this church where Alice lived. She kind of made the church a sanctuary for people who were of like minds, that perhaps were surrounded in a city of people who were not of like minds. My nice way of saying they were hippies and freaks. And
I was going to ask.
Yes.
Okay.
And so a lot of people would hang out there. And Alice had a big Thanksgiving dinner. And Arlo and his friend Rick decided the next morning it would be really nice to help Alice clean up. So they did. They put in everything that they could fit into Arlo's VW bus to take to the town dump.
To take the garbage down to the city dump. So we took the half a ton of garbage, put it in the back of a red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, and headed on toward the city dump.
Very thoughtful.
Yes, and once they got to the dump, they found the dump was closed. So they thought, well, we have this VW full of trash. What should we do with it? Oh, here's an existing pile of trash. We'll just add it to that.
What could be the harm?
Right, so that's what they did.
At the bottom of the cliff was another pile of garbage, and we decided that one big pile was better than two little piles, and rather than bring that one up, we decided to throw ours down. That's what we did.
And the next day, they were visited by the chief of police, and he cited them for littering. And they had to appear in court. And Arlo Guthrie was found guilty of this tragic offense of littering. And interestingly enough, because he had a record, he was no longer eligible for the draft in Vietnam. So he never had to go.
Wow. Very interesting. All right. And so, of course, this takes place on Thanksgiving, but, again, it really doesn't have anything to do with the holiday. Was this song originally considered, something else? It seems like a protest song.
To be truthful, there wasn't a lot of attention paid to the song at first.
Oh.
But then Arlo was invited to appear on a radio station in New York called WBAI. Plays Alice's Restaurant live. And of course, it's 18 and a half minutes long.
Yeah.
But people loved it. They thought it was the greatest song. And they started calling in WBAI and requesting Alice's Restaurant. And of course, they couldn't have Arlo come in and play it live every time.
Right.
So, and the true title of Alice's Restaurant, I should add, is Alice's Restaurant Massacre. And that's how you say it, Massacre.
Massacre. What is massacre? What does that mean?
Arlo Guthrie explained it at one time. He said it's a series of absurd events. So the Alice's Restaurant movement is against absurdity and in favor of reason. And listeners love that idea. And so what WBAI started doing was using Alice's Restaurant Massacre as a pledge drive thing. If you give us money during, because they're a public, non-commercial radio station.
Right.
If you give us money during our pledge drives, we'll play Alice's Restaurant Massacre.
And so that worked.
And that worked. And it morphed into a Thanksgiving tradition because it takes place on Thanksgiving. And there are no Thanksgiving songs.
No.
Think about it. There aren't any.
I can't think of one, really.
No, you can't.
People have been citing the Adam Sandler song, the Thanksgiving song.
Well, the Thanksgiving song isn't really... That's not going to be a tradition on the Colorado Sound because it doesn't touch people the way Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant Massacre does.
Right.
The idea, it's such an absurd thing to have happened to these two guys who were trying to do such a nice thing. And if you really think about it, one of the reasons that we all know they were cited is because they were hippies.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that touches a chord with people, but I also think people like traditions. And Thanksgiving is nothing if not about tradition.
Absolutely.
So once WBAI started playing this on Thanksgiving, other radio stations across the country started getting requests from people who moved from New York City and knew of this tradition to their radio stations.
Oh.
So that's how radio stations started playing Alice's Restaurant Massacre on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
It was kind of an organic movement.
Well, we were searching around a little bit and we found this interview with Arlo Guthrie talking to NPR in 2005. And here is what he said about the song.
It became an underground thing, not just here, but, everywhere, with guys on all sides of the struggles over there and the struggles that were going on here. And it actually became now, really, it's a Thanksgiving ballad more than an anti-war this or a pro that or whatever it was. And I think it could only happen here.
And so I thought it was kind of interesting to get his take on that. What do you make of that? I mean, about this transitioning from a protest song into a Thanksgiving song?
I think Arlo Guthrie was really surprised by the success of Alice's Restaurant. And as most songs do, they change with the times. Think of your favorite song. Think of a song that you truly love and it meant something to you at one time in your life. Now think about how that song means to you 20, 30, 40 years down the road. The feeling, the kernel of that feeling is still there, but the idea of the song in your mind has changed a bit. Alice's Restaurant is the same thing. And I think Arlo Guthrie, when times change, songs can fit to the changing times.
And the best songs, I think, have that kind of all-encompassing lyric where people can put their own meaning onto it.
So now I don't think the song that Arlo, as he sang it in 1967, means so much like the man's ridiculous as it means more to my dad listened to this. And so I listened to this on Thanksgiving. And now my children will listen to this on Thanksgiving. As the years pass, the meaning changes and it becomes different for each family. I think that's what he's referring to.
And just so you don't miss it, if you want to hear Alice's Restaurant tomorrow, tune into the Colorado Sound when?
At noon. Every year at noon, the Colorado Sound without fail will air Alice's Restaurant. But I will say everybody's watches are different, so tune in about a minute early to noon so you don't miss any of Alice's Restaurant.
Margot is a music host for 105.5 The Colorado Sound. Margot, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Accepting Alice, you can get anything you want.
A few things have changed since Margot and I originally recorded this conversation. For one thing, she's now the Colorado Sound's program director. But you can still gather the family and tune in at noon tomorrow for Alice's Restaurant on the Colorado Sound. That's it for us today here on In the NOCO. We're off for the holiday, back with you on Tuesday. Thanks so much for listening and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.